Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Joe.
And this is Crime Divers.
Hello everybody, welcome back.
Hello.
Hope everybody's good, and I'm kind of hoping we're getting some nice weather.
Well, it's a bit miserable, it's raining today.
Yeah, I know, but I'm thinking by the time this episode goes out, it's going to be June.
Yes, we are due for some heat waves.
Yeah, we're at, on the day that we're recording this, we're at the end of May.
Yes.
And we have had the coldest and the wettest May on record, I think.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm sure I read that the other day.
Yeah, it's not been a particularly great month for weather-wise.
So hopefully by the time this comes out, we're all, obviously...
I know we could be sitting in our shorts
Yeah.
and, I was going to say sunglasses, why would we have sunglasses on because we're inside, but,
Yeah, but...
it'd be nice weather. The door would be open and we'd have some hot air coming in.
Yeah.
No, okay.
I was just thinking, no, it was just when you're still having hot air coming in, I'm thinking,
Well,
it's
heat.
going to be roasting, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
it
I'm
might
not
be.
going to like it, I don't like the heat.
Have you got a fan?
Yeah, but it's massive and probably won't fit in here.
Well, we can make it work.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yes.
so,
Listen.
what's the name of your episode? 'Cause
Yes,
this is a lot of episodes.
Yes,
so.
it is a lot of sword today. So this one is called The Evil Stepmother.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yes.
And where in the world are we?
Well, we do start off in Australia, but it does make its way to America, to I can't remember where, but I'll tell you as the
It
story
doesn't
goes on.
matter.
But yeah, we start off in Australia, but then we do head to America.
Okay.
So there we go.
Hey, do you want to dive in?
Let's dive in. Okay, so Zahra Baker was born on the 6th of November 1999, so not too far away. That's quite a recent one for me. I've done quite a lot of oldies lately, so this is more recent. She was born to Emily Dietrich. I'm not entirely sure if that's how you pronounce
I
it.
mean, that's like German or something, isn't it?
Dietrich.
I've heard of that name. Is there not a famous person got that name?
I have no
A
idea.
dead famous person. A dead, like somebody who's died, like an oldie.
I really don't know.
Oh, okay, right.
But anyway, to her and Adam Baker. They both lived in a place called Wagga Wagga in Australia.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of that. Wagga Wagga. You
Yeah.
never heard of Wagga Wagga?
I've never heard of Wagga Wagga. I was kind of laughing as I was writing. I was like, is this actually a place?
I can't believe you've never heard of it.
No, I've never heard of it, no. I've only heard of like the main places like Perth, Sydney, Melbourne. So yeah, Wagga Wagga.
Okay.
There you go. But after Zahra was born, her mum, Emily, she had postnatal depression. Which it must have been quite bad because she actually gave up complete custody to Adam.
Oh, wow.
But I think she was, because I'm assuming they must have split up. Because it was like when Zahra was a toddler that she'd actually, so she was there for the first sort of couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
But when she was a toddler, she did give up full custody to Adam. So Adam actually took Zahra and he moved away with his parents to Guru in Queensland in 2004. So there he took a job working in a sugar mill. Sadly, Zahra, she didn't really have the easiest of times as a little girl. She was diagnosed with bone cancer in 2005.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she actually later suffered with lung cancer as well.
Wow.
I know, what a pure, barely
That's a lot,
That's a
isn't
lot
it?
for a young girl. And even worse, I mean, both had actually left her with life-changing medical issues. So she'd had to have part of her lung removed. She actually had to have hearing aids put in because it had taken away some of her hearing. And sadly, she also had the lower part of one of her leg amputated as well. And that was all from, cancer.
Wow.
It had obviously completely ravaged her body a bit, sadly. So she was described as courageous, and basically she didn't let it stop her. She was still a happy, little girl and had a zest for life, and it didn't sort of stop her from trying to do things that she wanted to do. So a little while later, Adam actually met a woman online. Her name was Elisa Fairchild. She lived in North Carolina. There we go.
Okay.
In US.
I don't like her.
No.
Because I'm assuming she's the wicked or evil
Well,
stepmother.
yeah, I suppose because of the evil stepmother title, you're kind of guessing that she's not going to be the nicest of people. So yeah, they met online, but the relationship must have developed quite quick because she came across to Queensland to visit, and soon after they were married.
All right.
So it must have happened quite quickly.
Right.
But obviously Adam didn't know that Elisa had already been married 6 times before.
Okay.
And apparently she was actually still married at the time. She married Adam, but of course he didn't actually know that. So their marriage was never actually legal because she was still
she was
married.
what do you call it, a bigamist?
Yes, a bigamist. Yeah. And apparently, which I didn't really understand this, but obviously I'll tell you in a bit. You know, they did move across to America, but she actually introduced her ex-husband, who was still her husband, to Adam and Zahra as her brother. But her reason for this...
I was just going to say why.
Her reason for this was because she was worried that Adam wouldn't let him be involved in Zahra's life. And I was like, but why would he be involved in Zahra's life? Why would he want to be?
Yes, that he's her husband, ex-husband, husband, whatever.
No, technically still married, but supposedly
ex-partner.
Yeah.
So why would that partner have anything to do with her stepdaughter?
Exactly, but apparently she introduced him as her brother.
They shouldn't have needed to be introduced.
Well, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Why would they even be introduced in the first place? But yeah, to be honest, I mean, I've seen a documentary, obviously, about her, and she is a bit. I'm not sure she's all there.
Okay.
So anyway, Zahra's cancer actually went into remission in 2008. So shortly after, the family moved to America to start their new lives together. So they moved to North Carolina, where Elisa had lived previously. They settled in a place called Hickory, and Zahra attended a public school for a short time, but she was suddenly taken out of school to be homeschooled. It was actually suspected that she was taken out because reports of child abuse were made to the school implicating Elisa. Neighbours claimed that Elisa was physically and mentally abusive and neglected Zahra.
So how was she allowed to be taken out of school then, to be homeschooled?
Well, exactly.
Surely she'd be better off being in school.
Well, that's what I think, but obviously... I mean, I didn't find out any more than that, really, that she was taken out and supposedly homeschooled.
Right.
So 2 teachers actually did visit the Baker's home when Zahra turned up to school with a black eye. But, you know, it's... Nothing. No, she was never charged for it anything at that point. And Adam was... At a later date, he was actually interviewed about the black eye. And asked, you know, did you not realise something was wrong? But I think because obviously I think Elisa had said that Zahra she'd fallen or she'd done something, it was some kind of accident, and I think he'd basically believed her.
Right.
So didn't really question it, didn't think anything of it. Child Services actually visited the family home on various occasions as well, so I suppose when they did take her out of school and homeschool her, it wasn't just left. She wasn't just left initially. They did investigate sort of things that were going on. Elisa also had 3 children of her own from previous relationships, and she'd actually also previously been investigated for abusive behaviour dating as far back as 1999, but clearly nothing ever.
And I take it Adam didn't know anything about that then?
He didn't know anything about it, so clearly nothing came of it back then either. So
really?
Yes, but it's always the case though. When somebody gets, like, when there's sort of abuse, it's never normally the first time, is it? I mean, it's...
Yeah, well, I know, like, I mean, if you're investigated more than once, then you know.
Exactly. So I don't know. But anyway, so on Saturday the 9th of October in 2010, a 911 call was made by Elisa at 5:30 in the morning, reporting a fire in the back of the family home. So when police arrived, they found a ransom note and a smell of gasoline coming from Adam's truck. He had like a company vehicle for whoever he worked for. So there was actually a ransom note on it. Now the ransom note was supposedly for his boss's daughter, because is, you know, there must have been something going on with the company or something like that, so they put a ransom note on Adam's truck, but in relation to his boss's daughter, saying that she was going to be like killed or whatever.
Why is it on his truck?
But that's where they thought there was a confusion of maybe it might have, like, they might have thought Zahra was, like, they might have mistaken Zahra for the boss's daughter. So there was a ransom note. Obviously, I'll tell you more about that later on.
Right.
But there was then another 911 call made later that day at about 2 p.m, and this was to report Zahra missing. Adam explained that this is obviously the 911 call, on this, he explained that during a fire, a £1 million ransom note was found on his company truck the night before, but it was addressed to Adam's boss, and who was actually the landlord of their house. His name was Mark Coffey. Adam explained that they had called 911 earlier that day about the fire and implied whoever started the fire may have done so to distract the family so that they could take Zahra.
Right.
So they thought the fire might have been a distraction,
right,
because obviously Zahra was missing. Adam said that he thought the kidnapper had mistaken Zahra for Mark Coffey's daughter, but it heard his daughter was at home safe and well, so
right,
that's what they thought had happened. Adam said that the last time he had seen his daughter was at 2:30 a.m, because apparently Adam left for work early in the morning, and he did not return until after Zahra went to sleep that night, so he hadn't seen her all day basically,
right,
before she went missing. Adam did kind of contradict himself in a later interview though, saying that he hadn't saw Zahra since Thursday. So this had happened on Saturday the 9th, and he'd said that he hadn't seen her since Thursday in a later interview, but yet he'd said he'd seen her at 2:30 in the morning of her disappearing.
I thought we were supposed to be trusting him.
Well, yeah.
I thought it was just the stepmother that we weren't trusting.
Well, we're not trusting her, but we'll talk about him later, because I'm not convinced on him, to be quite honest. So the police began an investigation, obviously, in Zahra's disappearance. The next day, police had search and rescue dogs search the Baker's house, search the cars for any possible evidence of what may have happened to Zahra. But the case took a surprise turn when the dogs gave positive alerts on the scent of human remains on both the Baker's cars. So the police, they took swabs of what they thought was blood from the car. But this is where I was a bit confused, because Elisa was arrested later, like that day, but she wasn't arrested for anything to do with Zahra at this point. She was arrested for unrelated crimes, which was for communicating threats, writing bad checks, larceny. But it was only on driving with a revoked licence as well. So I was kind of like, was she suspected at this point? Because she was given a polygraph test, when she'd been arrested, and she was asked questions at this point relating to Zahra. So she was arrested not to do, she wasn't arrested at that point to do with Zahra, but yet
they were questioning her about Zahra.
But yet they were questioning, and they gave her a polygraph test.
That doesn't make sense.
I couldn't find any information to kind of say whether they had suspected her, or had they just arrested her for these other things to sort of make her think she wasn't being arrested for it. I'm not really sure, because I couldn't find anything to say how it came about. But yeah, so she was given a polygraph test early in the investigation, and she failed it. She had been asked if she had hurt Zahra, if she knew of anyone who had harmed Zahra, and if she knew who wrote the ransom note. So obviously she failed on all those questions, because I think she must have denied knowing anything about it at that point. But while she was in jail for this, for the arrest that she had been made, she was charged with obstruction of justice, because she did later admit to writing the ransom note, which led police, on a goose chase basically.
Right.
But the police must have been fairly quick in thinking that she had something to do with it, or because I couldn't find, any other information. They must have decided she was something to do with it, and she was arrested and given this polygraph test. So in late 2010, a judge raised Elisa's bond from $40,000 to $65,000, believing she was a flight risk. Amber Fairchild, who was Elisa's daughter, said that her mother told her she was thinking of leaving North Carolina the day before she was arrested. So her daughter also said that she was involved in an online relationship with a man from England who had sent her thousands of dollars. And of course, Elisa had also failed to turn up to other court dates, so that's why our bond was obviously put up, so she couldn't.
I don't blame them.
Yeah. So sadly, for me to explain the rest of the story, I do have to tell you that Zahra she was dead.
You're right.
Yeah. She was dead. So 2 weeks after Elisa had been in custody, she actually did lead police to where Zahra's remains were found. I'll come back to that in a minute. But I did watch an interview with Elisa Baker to hear basically her account, because when it went to court, she obviously just admitted it, so she never had to explain herself basically to anybody. She
admitted that she did it.
Yeah, she didn't have to explain herself. So there was an interview from a woman, an Australian, must have been TV company or whatever, the Australian woman that actually interviewed her in prison, And it was actually quite an interesting documentary. So this is obviously her account of it. So it's actually believed that Zahra died 2 weeks before she was reported missing. So
2 weeks?
Yeah, apparently. So on the 24th of September, Elisa said that she had left Zahra at home while she went shopping.
How old was Zahra at this point?
She was 10.
Right.
So she left Zahra home while she went shopping. She returned home in the afternoon around 3 p.m. She said Zahra was lying on her bed. So she said, quote, "Zahra, are you okay?" Zahra didn't respond. So she went over and asked her again, "Zahra, are you okay?" Mm-hmm. So still there was no response from Zahra. So she said she put her hand on her, but she could tell she wasn't breathing. So she immediately started CPR. And she said she worked on her for about 30 minutes, but couldn't get her back, and said she should have phoned 911, but she got scared.
Of what?
Exactly. I was like, of what? Like, what were you scared of?
In a normal situation, if that was to happen, I'm sorry, but the first thing that most people would do was to phone 911.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the reporter woman, she's like, well, why did you get scared? And she was like, because I didn't know what to do. And it's like, well, surely you know what to do. If she's not breathing, if she's...
Yeah. You phone the emergency services.
phone the emergency services, exactly. That's what you do. She claims she then phoned Adam and he came home. The next bit's quite bad, so sorry to anybody that trigger warning here. But apparently she said that Adam came home and then dismembered Zahra.
He did that to his own daughter.
That's what she claims. So...
somebody, but she was dismembered. Somebody dismembered her.
So somebody did dismember her, but she claims that Adam came home and dismembered Zahra. But again, I don't understand why he would even do that. Like, even if she phoned him to come home because something had happened to her, why would he then... I mean, surely he would phone 911.
Surely he would have, yeah. I mean, like, if somebody...
Even if she had panicked and frozen and she'd phoned him and he come home, surely he would phone...
Of course.
It's his daughter, remember?
Exactly, his daughter.
Not, yeah.
If somebody... Your partner phoned you and said, "Oh my God, like, I've just came and found your daughter. Yeah. I think she's not breathing or whatever," and you come home. In fact, even before you come home, phone 911.
Exactly. So the interviewer, the woman said, so if that was the case, then why didn't you call the police? Like, why didn't you phone the police on your husband if that's what he came home and did? And she was like, her response was, because it was my husband, so I didn't do it. And I'm like, what?
I don't give a fuck if it's your husband. If that happens, doesn't matter who it is.
Exactly.
They've dismembered somebody.
Exactly. So Adam, he of course denied the allegation, and police didn't actually believe her anyway. They didn't believe her that had happened. So Adam was quoted as saying, "That's the biggest lie she's ever told," because there were a few interviews with Adam as well. But I just, in the interviews, I'm not claiming that he's had anything to do with it, but something just doesn't sit right with me with him.
Right.
He just very, like, he just came across as, like, he didn't come across as, like, that upset at times. Like, to me, like, if that was my daughter and she'd been cut up and died, I wouldn't have been able to put any sentences together. I would have been crying, I would have been whatever. But he was very, in his responses, it was very slow. Like, sometimes his eye contact would go away from who he was talking to. And I know that can happen when you're maybe upset, but he just didn't come across to me as...
He might have been on something. He might have been to calm him down or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's more about him later. But okay. I just don't know. Just watching his interview, I was just like, I just don't know. I'm not sure he had anything to do with it, but he just seemed a bit strange to me.
Okay.
So anyway, so Zahra's body parts were, they were discarded across various places, which...
Oh my God.
Elisa was still claiming that Adam did this. Like, claiming that he had cut it up.
Whoever did it, this is just awful.
Exactly. But phone records, the good old phone records, show that on the day of Zahra's...
yeah, because we're in the 2000s, aren't we?
Yeah, so we're, phone records again, show that on the day Zahra's body was disposed of, or they think that she was disposed of, Elisa made 9 phone calls to Adam's mobile. So why would she need to phone him? Because she's claiming that they were together and that he disposed of the body. So if she's with him, why would she need to phone him?
If she wasn't with him, why was she phoning him that many times as well, though? Like, if he claims that he wasn't in on it, why was she phoning him that many times?
Exactly.
Because is he saying that he had absolutely nothing to do with
basically.
it?
So
he knew nothing about it?
Yeah, so his phone signal was actually traced as being 20 miles away from where Elisa was. She's adamant like in her interview, she's adamant that he was with her. Like she stands by that. She was like, no, he was with me, and I'm like,
well, either that, well,
because to be fair, like when you first see the interview, I mean, she's quite, like, she, you know, the way that she talks about Zahra, she's talking her quite fondly, and she can sort of see the smile, as if, you know, she obviously had some sort of connection with her there. But it was only towards the end that I thought when obviously the interview was kind of pushing her a bit on her account of things, and she was kind of like being a bit like, not nippy, but just not as forthcoming and nice as she was sort of right at the start.
She's getting a bit irritated with all the questions.
Yeah, I think so. But she was adamant. But phone records confirm that Adam was at work, and Elisa was at locations of where Zahra was found. So right. He was. So it
was her that's done it.
Well, it does seem that way. Yeah. He has got an alibi to say that he was at work with his phone records. But she's adamant that she didn't kill her, and as I said, she stands by her story. She stands by the fact that, you know, she came home, she found her unresponsive. She did CPR. She phoned Adam to come home. He supposedly cut her up.
No, that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so she stands by that. Like in that interview that I saw, that's what she says happens. But
the only reason that this would have happened, like that Zahra was dismembered and put in various places, is because she was murdered. If she died of
natural causes or whatever.
If she had just come home and found her unresponsive.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. Even if she panicked and even if she had frozen, like Adam would surely, if he had come home, like she says, then he would have phoned 911. You would think. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, does it? No.
If somebody's died, you know, natural causes or whatever, it makes no sense for somebody to do that.
Exactly. So, but of course, you know, the evidence was overwhelming. And it was so overwhelming that even her own lawyer said it would take a jury 5 minutes to convict her. Yeah. So even her own lawyer was like, I can't defend you on this, to be honest.
No, I mean, how could you defend something like that?
Exactly. I mean, there were other accounts of what happened, which came from Elisa's aunt, who said that Elisa told her that Zahra had died after being sick for 2 weeks, that they didn't know what to do, so they just went wild. That was what her aunt was quoted as saying.
What do you mean we just went wild?
Well, I think they mean that they just panicked and went crazy and obviously did something. Yeah, I know. But Lisa also apparently admitted in a letter to a man named Eric Gein, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. He was a crime memorabilia dealer, and she was apparently quoted as saying, as we really didn't kill her, but what he did after the fact is kind of horrifying. It makes me scared of him. So she was quoted as saying that in a letter.
Right. But yet she could go and get rid of the parts of the body.
Exactly. So as I'd said to you before, she agreed a plea deal, which I didn't say that to you before, but she obviously.
I was going to say, did you?
No, she pleaded. I mean, well, I said that she'd admit to doing it, but I mean, she did agree a plea deal, which would see her avoid the death penalty. Mm-hmm. And in November 2010, she started to lead police to different areas to find Zahra's scattered remains. Numerous bones of Zahra were found, but it was actually a few years later until they found her head. Her prosthetic leg was also found, and they were able to confirm it was Zahra's as the serial number matched her medical records that the police obtained from Australian records and stuff, so they could tell it was definitely her leg. Once they had all Zahra's body parts, they were actually able to determine that she had been cut up using a saw. Her cause of death was classed as undetermined homicidal violence, and that simply means a crime where a person is violently killed for uncertain reasons. So she was violently killed, but they don't really know why. Basically, they don't know why she was killed.
What do you mean why? Like
they don't know.
What do you mean how?
Or how? Where? How or why?
I was going to say, to me, the why is like why somebody had killed her.
Yeah, sorry, they don't know how she
was killed, but it was violent.
Yeah, they just know it was violent.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awful. So she didn't just come home and find her unresponsive then?
No, and that's, I mean, we don't know why. We don't know why she died. We don't know how she died, and we probably never fully will. I don't think, because she's
unless she admitted it.
Yeah. But investigators believe that Zahra Baker killed and dismembered Zahra on the 24th of September 2010 and disposed of her remains the following day. Elisa Baker was indicted by a grand jury for second-degree murder with aggravating circumstances on February the 22nd of 2011. And the 5 aggravating circumstances were: Elisa Baker had a history of physical, verbal and psychological abuse of the child. She secreted the child from her family before and after the crime. She desecrated Zahra's body to hinder the murder investigation and prosecution. Zahra was young and physically handicapped, and Elisa took advantage of a position of trust. So that was the 5 reasons basically why she was found guilty of her murder.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said that she was they reckon that she died 2 weeks before she was reported missing.
Uh-huh.
So the dad either must have known.
Well, this is where I was confused.
Like, where did he think she was if he didn't know that she died?
Because apparently they had said, because obviously again he was in it, because this is where he contradicted himself, because like at first he said he hadn't seen her since that morning before he left for work on the Saturday. Then he said he hadn't seen her since the Thursday in a later interview. But then it says that supposedly she was already been dead for 2 weeks. But from what he said, she was she spent a lot of time in her room where she'd only came out if she wanted something. So like
so he thinks that she was in the house for 2 weeks, but he didn't see her.
Basically, yeah, he was like, and I think because he worked so early and came back late, I think he may have popped his head into a room and thought maybe she was sleeping and stuff. But she never. And I was like, there was a bit of confusion there. I didn't really kind of understand because there was a lot of contradiction.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, surely he doesn't work 7 days a week for all those hours. And like, you might not have seen her, but surely you would hear her moving about. I mean, like, my daughter spends a lot of time in her room, but I hear her going to the toilet.
Did I say? Yeah, cause I think I don't know, there was maybe something about her had not been well and stuff as well, especially she'd been a bit sick. But then I'm thinking,
you think you'd go in and check on her though?
But if your daughter's had cancer, she's obviously got a prosthetic leg, she's got hearing and sort of things. You think you would be more into checking on her, checking her well-being, seeing how she is, etc. But so that's why reason why I was thinking.
This is what.
To me, he wasn't. He didn't seem like a hands-on dad at that point. Like he didn't, considering of all she'd been through. I'm assuming he must have been to be the sole parent to her, as she was growing up.
But maybe he's kind of just passed the reins on to the stepmom, and he maybe hasn't been a very hands-on dad. I mean, it just doesn't seem to add up, does it?
It's very contradictory, and I did see that because when I looked at different places, it was like, well, I don't really understand how they thought she was then dead 2 weeks ago, and he's not realised this. I didn't quite get that. But Adam, as I said, Adam has completely denied any involvement in Zahra's death. And the police, they've not found any credible evidence to suggest that he had any involvement in her death or to charge him with murder. A lot of people do think that Adam had something to do with it, and he's been shouted at in the street. They actually had a vigil in that for her as well after she did, but he felt like he couldn't attend because people were obviously accusing him and stuff like that. But after watching, like I said before, interviews with Adam, I can't help but feel like maybe he could have something to do with it. Police did suspect him for a time, as I've said. He did, when he made the 911 call, to report Zahra missing, he sounded very relaxed. He didn't sound panicked when he made the call, because to me, if your daughter's missing, surely you're panicking. But he sounded very relaxed, and it was almost like matter of fact, about her being missing and explaining about the fire and stuff. He just didn't sound very panicked. And when they discovered the ransom note, he didn't even think to check on his own daughter. Do you know what I mean? Like at that point, because obviously, remember this fire was like 5:30 in the morning.
Right, yeah.
They didn't report her missing until 2 in the afternoon. So when they got this ransom note, why didn't he go and then check on his daughter? Because that's what you would do, wouldn't you?
Of course. I mean, it just.
So that's a bit.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I keep saying it. It just doesn't add up.
No, exactly.
And I'm not saying that he killed her.
I mean, there's no evidence to say he did,
but that doesn't mean to say he didn't know anything.
But there's just like seeing that interview. You can't quite put your finger on it. But there's just something.
But imagine if he did know, how could he protect that woman?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I wrote that here. I was like, how could he not have realised she was missing for 15 days, especially as she has the special need, the special needs with her, her hearing and her thing.
And he would have known, surely, like, because when she was like homeschooled and that, and do you not say that she kind of got investigated with child abuse?
Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot of things there that, you know, you'd think would be, like, flagged up. And I did actually wrote, you know, because as I said, when I'd said to you about, you know, he'd come home from work and not really even poked his head in the door, his excuse was she was going through puberty and didn't come out her room much. That was his excuse for not realising that she was missing.
No, that's not an excuse. I'm sorry.
And I'm like, but even so, even if she wasn't coming out of her room, you can still
go in and
check on her and
just go in and
I know he obviously
if she's asleep or whatever, give her a kiss. If she's awake, just are you alright? Like, and if she shouts, get out my room or whatever, right, fine. Exactly. But at least she knows she's there.
I mean, he obviously trust Elisa that she was just taking care of her and he didn't really need to bother her.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently, although I laughed at this bit because apparently he was described by the police as a wholesale idiot.
Okay. I've never heard that term before.
So apparently he was described
wholesale idiot.
Yeah, apparently he was described as that. So.
Okay.
And he himself was arrested for identity theft and obtaining property under false pretences. He received a suspended sentence for that, and he was actually deported back to Australia and took Zahra's remains with him, and that's where he is now. He's back in Australia. She's in prison. He got deported, and he's not. You know, he's never faced any. He's never faced any.
I mean, my opinion on it is that it was.
I think
stepmother.
Yeah. I think it was.
But I think he knows more than what he was letting on, and I just don't understand how. I mean, like, surely, if he did know more than he was letting on, surely he would tell the police everything. That's his daughter.
Yeah, but just the interviews that he just does not come across as. I mean, that must be horrifying to know that your daughter has, one, been killed, two, she's been cut up.
I don't like it.
I know. I mean, it's horrible to think, you know, that's happened. But
what a horrible case.
I know, when I see
you have the cheek to moan at me when I do horrible ones or when I do children ones.
Yeah.
And you just went and done one.
I know, that was pretty bad. And just like watching her, like her in prison and stuff. And I mean, I could tell the interview was like getting like really annoyed with her and really upset because she wasn't. Because when she said about why didn't if Adam had come home and you know dismembered her like you said, like why didn't you call the police? And her response was obviously because it was my husband. The interview was just like, that's just not good enough. Like that is not good enough. That is not a good enough answer. And obviously she was just kind of like, well, that's it really. That is the answer. And then part of me was like, how, you know, when she's talking about her, like, you know, she's smiling and recalling memories and saying they were close and she treated her well. And I'm thinking, how can you sit there and say that?
No.
If that was all true. But then I said she's obviously, you know, trying to pin it on him, saying that it was him that cut her up. But I just don't understand why he would, if he had come home, found her dead.
But obviously that didn't happen though, because she was, because it said once that
the phone records said that he was at his work.
No, what I was going to say is when her remains were found, they said that she died violently. So there's no way did he come home and she was just lying there.
No.
Unresponsive. That's not what happened.
No, that's right, yeah. So, I mean, sadly, we'll never know.
We'll
never know how she actually died before she was dismembered. We just know that she was obviously cut up with a saw, but we'll never know how it came to be that she died. Like, what happened?
What a shame.
What happened to cause that? Like, what happened to make that happen? Was it natural causes? I don't think it was. You know, what
no,
caused...
because they said it was violent.
Yeah.
She had a violent death.
That they don't, yeah.
So it couldn't have been natural causes.
No.
So it's bullshit. They didn't come home and find her unresponsive and panic. No. Because who does that?
Well, exactly. I mean, who doesn't phone...
Yeah, you panic, but you panic and phone the police.
Exactly.
The ambulance.
Yeah, you do panic. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you wouldn't panic, but you still... If she supposedly she's done 30 minutes of CPR, I mean, in that time, surely she's going to... You know, normally you'd be on the phone to the emergency services and doing CPR. Exactly.
Of course.
So
it's bullshit.
Exactly.
Total bullshit. Mm-hmm. But as I said, like, what I just didn't get is his involvement in it.
That's what I mean. I don't fully understand. You know, was he involved? Wasn't he involved? I mean, there's nothing.
And if he wasn't, why does everything not make sense?
Yeah, like there's nothing to prove that he was involved. There's no evidence to suggest that he was. But something just doesn't sit right with me.
To me, it seems like she's killed her and he's covered up for it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. But why would you do that?
Why would you? Especially when it's not her daughter. I mean, it's his daughter.
His daughter. His daughter should mean more to him than
this woman that he's
met.
He's met online, married after a few weeks, moved, across the other side of the world.
See, I hate it when I would love to know, but we're never gonna.
No, I don't think we're going. She'll spend the next however many years in prison.
What did she get?
She got life, but I think it was like a minimum of. I think she'd be like 70 or something by the time she was out, if she was to get out.
Right.
But she avoided the death penalty because she, obviously,
because she made a plea deal.
The plea deal, yeah.
Oh well. Well, thank you for that. That was lovely. Thank you.
Soz.
But yeah, I mean, like, as we always say, like, the stories need to be told.
Yeah, and it's a shame because she had a hard start to life as it was.
Yeah.
I mean, having 2 cancers that, had ravaged her body. She'd end up with an amputation on her leg, part of her lung had gone, her hearing had gone. I mean,
she had a shit start to life, so she deserved
and
to have a good life.
I seen a video of her when she was like getting her ear thing, and she seemed so happy, still such a happy girl for considering what she'd obviously been through.
Yeah. She deserved to have a happy life, and that woman took it away from her.
Basically, yeah. And for what, we'll never know. I don't know.
I know, I mean, like, what?
I know. For what could she have possibly done to have pushed her to that? Yeah.
Don't know, but that was awful.
Yeah, I know. A shame.
So, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Hope I didn't
depress you like she's depressed me.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, thanks for that. I'm not in a very good mood now.
I know, sorry, but I had to tell it.
Yeah, I know. So, if you would like to follow us on social media, we are on Instagram and Twitter,
which is crime_divers_pod.
We have a Facebook group,
Crime Divers Podcast.
We have an email,
crime_divers_pod@outlook.com.
What else have we got? We've got a YouTube channel,
Crime Divers Podcast. TikTok.
We've got TikTok, which is Crime Divers Podcast.
And if you like the show,
you have to say it because I always get it wrong.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review.
Oh yeah, and Patreon. Forgot about Patreon.
Don't forget Patreon.
We have the Patreon, and we have the offer on that if you sign up before the end of June, you will get August
for free,
because August is the best month of the year because that's when we were born.
Exactly. And the podcast
podcast was born, but mainly us.
Like. Mainly us, obviously, yes. Yeah. So we're celebrating us, but we're celebrating the fact that we've been doing the podcast for a whole year. On the Patreon, you will get two bonus episods a month. Mm-hmm. So by now I actually don't know how many there is, but there's a few. Yeah, there's a few. I would say maybe, well, I don't know actually, maybe about 15, something like that. Yeah, but there's a good few there for you to binge on. Yeah, there's a good few, and obviously it's even once you listen to them, you're still going to get 2 extra episodes a month. And you get early access to our normal episodes. Yeah, you get early access. They come out on a Sunday, the ones that are the Tuesday episodes, and the Friday episodes they will come out on a Wednesday on Patreon. Yes, so there are some good things on there. Yeah. And your undying love would be great. Yeah, of course, that's the main thing. Your undying love. Yes. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Bye.